Warning: the following content may not be suitable for all listeners and contains crude humor that may be offensive to some. Listener discretion is advised. This is Satire is Not Dead. Hello everybody, and welcome back to Satire is Not Dead, podcast number 2. My name is Harvey, and I am your host. The first podcast was merely an introduction to kind of set the tone as to what kind of content I'd be putting out. But I never bothered to explain why I named it Satire is Not Dead. And the reason I did that is because in the visual medium, like Saturday Night Live and similar programs, it's easy to understand and know that it's satire because you're seeing a familiar version of something that they're taking certain aspects and making fun of. So you know it's satire. But in the literary and audio media, not everyone gets it, and that's a shame. And hopefully I can do something about that and have some fun in the meantime, maybe get a few laughs here and there. But I will admit, and everyone knows about this story already. It's been driven into the ground. But I will admit that with guys like Joe Biden in the news, if the mainstream media wasn't reporting this, I would think that a comedian wrote this shit, because Joe Biden, poor thing, he can't even get out of his own way right now. So I'm going to recap what his latest foot and mouth incident was. Former Vice President Joe Biden has quickly recognized his big Friday morning mistake. While closing out an interview with Charlamagne the God on The Breakfast Club, Biden declared that if you have a problem figuring out whether you are for me or Trump, you ain't black. A whole lot of people unexpectedly found Biden's comments racist and offensive, and by Friday afternoon, Biden acknowledged he shouldn't have been such a wise guy. I don't know if he's as racist as much as he's just stupid. I mean, two things. He gets flustered easily, and so because of that, he reacts according to his emotional state. And second, he's not a good extemporaneous speaker. He has to have something scripted and planned to the point that he won't trip up. And anytime there's a deviation, he just completely fucks himself up. And that's what he did this time. And, if he acted out of anger and showed his true colors, maybe he is racist. I don't know. But the word racist is thrown around way too much these days. And he's just a dumbbell. That's something he has in common with former President Barack Obama. They're not extemporaneous speakers. Not everybody has it. So I think that's what his problem is. But the thing that gets me is that he's a panderer, and that bugs me about politicians, and they all do it. But the story goes on. Perhaps I was much too cavalier, Biden said in a Friday afternoon call back with black business leaders. I've never, ever taken the African American community for granted, he continued, adding that no one should have to vote for any party based on their race, their religion, their background. Charlamagne grilled Biden on his morning show, telling the presumptive Democratic nominee, he's not going to be the nominee. There's no freaking way he can survive a full-blown presidential campaign. No way. He don't have the energy for a 30-minute interview. Telling the presumptive Democratic nominee that black people saved your political life in the primaries this year, and they have things they want from you. And one of them is a black woman running mate. Biden assured Charlamagne that several black women were under his consideration before someone off-screen told Biden his time was up. That was his handlers telling him, probably falling all over themselves, telling him to shut your fucking mouth, just stop talking. And Charlamagne told Biden that he had more questions, though, and that's when Biden made his retarded comment that you ain't black if you don't vote Democrat. It's just such a stupid thing. His apology was just like probably written down in front of him, and he read it word for word. But I think he showed his true colors, whatever they are. If they'd have left it up to Joe to defend himself without any help, he probably would have said something like, "Yeah, I'm real sorry. I apologize, and I'm really a changed man. I'm sorry that I said those weren't if they didn't vote Democrat. From now on, those can be that they are, and it's okay with me. I don't have a problem with that." I mean, that's what he might as well have said, right? I mean, maybe he thought that Charlemagne the God would just go along with it and kind of laugh about it and blow it off, but he actually held Joe's feet to the fire and didn't let him get away with it. And so that's good. I'm glad those guys are even on the Democratic side, not putting up with this stupid bullshit. So anyway, moving on. From theonion.com. Fun toy banned because of 3 stupid kids. Washington, D.C. In cooperation with the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission, Wizco Toys of Montclair, New Jersey recalled 245,000 Aqua Assault Robo-Fighters Monday after 3 dumb kids managed to kill themselves playing with the popular toy, ruining the fun for everyone else. The tragedy is inconceivable, Wizco President Alvin Cassidy said. For years, countless children played with the Aqua Assault Robo-Fighter without incident. But then these 3 retards come along and somehow find a way to get themselves killed. So now we have to do a full recall and halt production of what was really an awesome toy. What a waste. My mom won't let me play with RoboFighter because of those dumb kids who died, said 10-year-old Jeremy Daigle of Somerville, Massachusetts. I used to set up army guys around the RoboFighter and have it run over them and conquer Earth for the Zardaxians. Okay, but now I'll never see it again, all because three stupid idiots had to go and wreck everything. Each of the deaths was determined to be the result of gross misuse of the toy, an incredibly cool device that could shoot both plastic missiles and long jets of water, as well as maneuver over the ground on retractable wheels. The first death occurred when 7-year-old Isaac Weiler of Grand Junction, Colorado, died after he deliberately firing one of the spring-loaded plastic missiles into his left nostril. The missile shot into his sinuses, shattering the roof of his... Oh, man, I'm having a hard time getting through this. Roof of his nasal cavity and causing a massive brain hemorrhage. You know what makes this shit funny is that there's a grain of truth in it. I remember as a kid, and I don't know what the attraction between boys and fire is, but I guarantee you there's not one man who didn't fuck around with fire at least once in his childhood. I grew up in a rural area, and it was an area that there was no trash collection, didn't exist until, well into my young adulthood. So we had what was called burn barrels, and as I began to grow up in my childhood, one of my responsibilities was take out the trash. And so Dad bought a steel drum, and we would burn our garbage so it wouldn't pile up, and, we had to do something with it. And it was my job to take it out, put it in the barrel, and burn it. And one time, I started the fire, and there was this plastic milk jug that was melting. And so I picked it up by the handle, and the plastic was melting, and it made this weird dripping noise. And it was kind of faint, so I pulled it closer to me so I could kind of hear it better, and a big dollop of melted milk jug fell right on top of my big toe. And I mean right across it. And the time it took for me to drop the jug and reach down and peel that piece of plastic off my toe, it had hardened enough that it just took the skin right with it, and it burned like hell. But I don't know why boys and fire go together so much, but there was these other 2 kids in the neighborhood who had this 5-gallon gas can, and it was the old steel type, It was basically a rectangular piece of sheet metal that a machine rolled into a cylinder and crimped the edges and, made a gas can out of it. And it had the spout on it was cone-shaped, where you could unscrew it at the base and put gas in it at the gas station with the nozzle and screw it back on, and then it had a smaller cap on the narrow end where you could pour gas out of. Well, these 2 dumb fucking kids were, starting a fire, burning some whatever. I don't know what they were burning, but they wanted to start a fire. Go figure. And there was some fuel, some gasoline in the can. So one of them lights the stuff on the ground, put some gas on the ground, on what they were going to burn, and lights it on fire. And so, naturally for this dumbass, the fire wasn't big enough. So I remember him saying, hey, look. He picks up the gas can and upends it, turns it upside down, and there's a steady stream of gasoline going into the fire. And the fire was actually traveling up the stream of gasoline. But what they didn't realize, and we didn't know this until after it happened, that there wasn't much gas in the can. So when the liquid gasoline ran out, the fire backfed into that can because the fumes ignited. And it blew up, and it fucking blew up, and to the point that it peeled that gas can, flattened it out, opened it at the seams, and it was just like it started. It was a rectangular piece of sheet metal that had blown up, but it made this fireball. And this kid, there were actually two of them, and the one who had the gas can had his eyebrows were burned off and his bangs were singed, and his friend would try to talk to him, and the one who got sort of blown up, he couldn't hear for about a week very well. So every time his friend would ask him something, he would yell at him, and because he couldn't hear his own voice, and when he would finally answer him, he would yell even louder so that he could hear his voice. But we're lucky those two dumb shits didn't get killed. But there wasn't, I don't know what it is with boys, but my point is kids do so much stupid shit that's what makes this story funny. Anyway, moving on. Shortly before dying, Wilder told emergency medical personnel at St. Luke's Medical Center that he had shot the missile into his nose in the belief that it would travel through his body and out his belly button. Genius. I've heard some pretty stupid shit in my time, but that has to take the cake, said Dr. Anderson Hunt, the attending physician. Why would any kid think he could fire a plastic missile up his nose and expect him to come out his belly button? There's no point in feeling bad about this child's demise because the deck was obviously stacked against him from the start. What we should feel bad about is the fact that because of him, millions of other children will no longer get to fire the RoboFighter's super cool Devastator missiles or soak their friends with this fun foam water blasters. Less than 1 month after Weiler's death, 5-year-old Daniel Krug fatally suffocated on fragments of the toy after repeatedly smashing it with a claw hammer in the garage of her parents' La Porta, Indiana home. I'm not kidding, said Diane Enser, an emergency room nurse at Our Lady of Peace Hospital in La Porte, where Krug was announced dead. Damn, that's rough. Pronounced dead. She thought the broken shards were candy. That's what you'd assume after breaking a plastic inedible toy, right? Absolutely unfucking believable. This is pretty dark. Joshua, oh God, what her last name? Schatznader of Grand Rapids, Michigan, is forced to play with a boring little truck as a result of the recall. The third and arguably the stupidest death occurred August 12, when 11-year-old dumbass Michael Torres held the RoboFighter above his head and jumped off the balcony of his family's third-story Torrance, California apartment, thinking he would be able to fly like Superman. A couple of my fellow emergency workers thought we should cut the kid some slack, because at least he wasn't trying to eat the toy or shove it up his nose, said paramedic Deborah Linfers, who tried in vain to revive Torres. I considered this for a while, but then I decided, no way. If you're 11 years old, you should know that it's impossible to fly, and poor Wisco's probably going to go bankrupt because of this shit. As a result of the extreme idiocy of these three children, the CPSC was forced to order Wisco to stop making the toy and remove it from store shelves, as well as recommend that parents remove it from their homes. I know the overwhelming majority of American kids who owned an Aqua Assault RoboFighter derived many hours of safe, responsible fun from it, CPSC Commissioner Mary Sheila Gall said, but statistically speaking, 3 deaths stemming from contact with a particular toy constitutes an unreasonable risk. Look, I'm really sorry about this, honestly, but our agency's job is to protect the public from hazardous products, even if those who die are morons who deserve what they got. Jeez, that is... it's freaking as dark as it is funny. Man, I almost wish that story was true. What does that say about me as a person? I don't know. Anyway, also from theonion.com, pathetic man cries when he's upset rather than screaming at his 3-year-old son to shut the f*** up. That's a hell of a title. Biloxi, Alabama. Stressing that he was both a pitiful excuse for masculinity and an utterly spineless worm, reports confirmed Monday that Kevin Chanowski was a pathetic man who cries when he's upset, rather than simply screaming at his 3-year-old son to shut the fuck up. Jesus, what kind of shriveled husk of manhood lets himself tear up whenever when he's sad instead of yelling at his kid to knock it the hell off, said sources close to Chanowski, adding that when overwhelmed, the timid weakling was more likely to retreat to his bedroom and muffle his sobs into a pillow than lash out at his wife and son before smashing his plate into the trash in an impressive display of dominance. It's the sort of parenting that will just make his son grow up into another castrated wuss like him. Pretty soon this kid is going to honestly believe that screaming obscenities at the top of your lungs and punching the wall until your knuckles are bloody isn't the best way to deal with your anger. It's a vicious goddamn cycle. At press time, the effete male was spotted backing down to another father's request that they let the children have a play date at his house rather than beating the fellow parent to a pulp on the sidewalk to regain his status as an alpha male. Wow. It's the effeminization, is that a word, of men in America. Incredible. And finally, sad news from theonion.com. Longtime person dead at 86. From Jacksonville, Florida. Capping off a lengthy period of existence, longtime person Jane Brooks reportedly died Wednesday at the age of 86. The individual, who spent her entire life as a human being, passed away due to congestive heart failure after more than 80 years of being a person, said neighbor Susan Lansing, explaining that Brooks was known throughout the community for being a human who was alive from 1934 to 2020. For as long as I've known her, she was always a person. She frequently did things and said things. Of course, many people have been people, but she was this person. Everyone you talk to will say that she was first and foremost a person. She left behind an indelible legacy of being alive and then not being alive anymore. At press time, the longtime person was survived by other people. Hope you get it. I'd like to thank you for joining me for my second podcast, and I encourage you, if you like what you're hearing, please leave me a comment. And if you don't like it, comment anyway. Let me know what you would like more of, if you want more of the same or something else. And consider please following, sharing, downloading. And I will see you next time. My name is Harvey. I am your host for Satire is Not Dead.